Good morning, participants. I can see all the wonderful faces so early in the morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, welcome to the St. Augustine Area Council meeting for the month of November. What I'd like to do this time, because we didn't get to do it since this is our first official meeting of the season, is introduce my council members. So my vice chair this year is Patty McRoberts, who is the general manager of the Trip by Wyndham. My program chair is Bruce Hallett, owner of Matanzas Geosciences, Inc. Our communication chair is no other than Cecile Nussbaum, who is president and owner of Old City Web Services, Inc. Morning, everyone.
Good
My membership chair is Lisa Lobo, who is the mortgage banking officer of BBVA. Our immediate past chair is no other than Memory Hopkins, broker owner of Memory Hopkins Real Estate, who did a fabulous job last year. Thank you so much, Memory. I have shoes to fill, which is not going to be easy for me. And of course, I am your chair, which is Lori Brandell, VP of the North St. Augustine ViStar. So without further ado, what I'd like to do first is I'd like to read the Historic Area Council's mission statement. The Historic St. Augustine Area Council of the St. Johns County Chamber of Commerce is the cohesive voice of the historic downtown and entry corridor for the business community, focusing on providing a place for business people to network, address common concerns, learn from each other, and create workable solutions to achieve positive changes for the business community. That is our goal, that is our hopes. And in order for us to achieve that goal, we need everybody in our business community to have input at our meetings or send us emails of concerns or things that you would like us to have as programs so that we could be united and end up being very good, I guess, married with the chamber so that we can meet the needs, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to help the business community. So going on, our keynote speaker today is going to be Reuben Franklin. He is the director of the Public Works Department of the St. Augustine City. The topic today, well, it's relevant. It has to do with flooding in St. Augustine and what's going on and how it's being affected. And considering the spring tides are starting today, I'd say this is a relevant topic. I'm going to ask Reuben to actually introduce himself, because who better to share his accolades and what he's done. And then he's going to do his presentation. After he's done with his presentation, if you all have any questions, there's a chat box at the bottom of your screen. Please provide us with your questions. And after Reuben is done with his presentation, I'll go in to see if there's anything there that we can address for you. And then we'll go from there. So without further ado, here is Reuben Franklin.
Thank you very much, Lori. I've been in front of the Historic Area Council before, but I think this is the first time as a new title as Public Works Director. It was a pleasure. For those that don't know me, my name is Reuben Franklin, and I graduated from the University of Florida with a bachelor's in civil engineering in 2006. And I've been working with the city since July 2010. So I'm going on my 11th year here at the city. Things that we've been working on in public works outside of flooding, you know, we program in our paving management plan, our capital improvements, past projects. We've worked on a Riberia Street, the new seawall, Avely Street, the downtown improvements, which is Hippolyta, Treasury, Spanish Street. And just a note on that, we do have plans to extend that phase to Kuna Street and North Spanish Street as well. But one undertaking that we did take on that you'll see kind of the fruits of that labor was we did enter into a agreement with the DEO to do a vulnerability and adaptation assessment. And that was a few years ago. And that, I believe, has set us up very nicely to have discussions like we're going to have today. And with further ado, I'd start the presentation. If anybody wants to reach out, you can reach me at my email, which is rfranklin@citystsaug.com. You should be able to find it pretty easily on the city website. Or I can also follow up if you have any questions at the end of this presentation. So what I'd like to do is I wanted to frame this. I gave an after action report to our city commission a few weeks ago. We had a nor'easter that caused citywide flooding, and then not even a week later, we had a rainfall event that caused countywide flooding as well. So the city of St. Augustine is a very low-lying city. You can go next slide, please. So the city of St. Augustine is a low-lying coastal community. It's been here for 450 plus years now, and it's always experienced flooding. But what we're seeing are trends going where that frequency is going to start to increase, and that's due to climate change. But what we get here is you have king tides, also referred to as spring tides, plus a nor'easter, plus a few inches of rain, and that is an equation or recipe for citywide flooding. We don't get these all together, but when they do coincide together, that's usually when we get flooding events that impact our neighborhoods and our downtown business district as well. So this is just, we can get spring tides or king tides without the rain, and we call that sunny day flooding. So that's kind of what happened the last nor'easter that we had. We had 20 plus mile per hour. So a nor'easter is a storm that impacts the eastern coast of the US, and the wind blows from the northeast. And what happens when the wind blows for multiple days from the northeast, it pushes that tidal water up into our rivers and estuaries, which then actually adds elevation to our tides. So for instance, the nor'easter that we had a 3-foot tide, but we also saw that the water got pushed up about a foot, 2 feet higher. So we actually had a 5-foot water elevation. So it was a 3-foot tide, and then we had measured 5 feet of flooding. So we account that the nor'easter was about 2 feet of that water, and that was just due to the wind and the direction that the wind was blowing. Next slide, please. So this is a map of that date. This was in September 2020, not too long ago. This nor'easter impacted us for multiple days, and it coincided with spring tides, and this caused multiple areas of the city to flood. So the blue that you're seeing is actually mapped using a digital elevation model, and you should see if you were around and witnessed this flooding, that this was pretty accurate to where the flooding was. So you have Maria Sanchez, which is on the south part of the map, where City Hall is located. And then you also have South Davis Shores and North Davis Shores on the island. And then also the Fullerwood and Nelmar area. Those are pretty much our most vulnerable neighborhoods, the Fullerwood and South Davis Shores area. And primarily it's because they're low lying and they're right adjacent to the marsh. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but you can see here, these are pictures actually from the nor'easter. So top left is East Park Avenue in Fullerwood, Orange Street and Riberia Street as well. The middle picture on the left, the bottom left is Lewis Boulevard, which is Oyster Creek. We also documented flooding in Court Theophilia, Coquina Avenue, and then Washington Street, which is in Lincolnville. And so what this shows us is that we do have a vulnerable community to tidal flooding. And I'll lay out in the next few slides what projects the city has in line, but also where we need to go in the future. Next slide, please. So we do have a online reporting tool, and I think maybe some of you used it, but you can go online and report flooding. From the event, we did receive 42 flooding reports. And what we do with these is we try to respond to each individual report, but we also use it to program in future projects. So you can kind of see almost where these reports were clustered at are kind of are really vulnerable areas. And we have projects in some of these areas, and then we need to start to work on future projects to help mitigate the flooding in other areas. Next slide. So again, this is a picture of South Street in Lake Maria Sanchez. This is in the connecting the Old City South neighborhood to the Lincolnville neighborhood. This type of flooding here actually reaches all the way up and floods Cordova Street, Granada Street, Bridge Street, around the City Hall area up to King Street. And so this is actually, we have a project underway that's going to stop this type of flooding. I'm pretty excited about it, and I'll go into detail in a little bit.
You're gonna be in line behind all these people. Wait for the doors to open.
But so if you see here, this is South Street, the picture, and on the right side of the picture is the marsh, and on the left side of the picture is Maria Sanchez, and the tide came up so high that it just overtopped the road and then caused neighborhood-wide flooding all the way up to King Street during this event. So next slide, please. So what do we do when it responds like this? Well, city crews, we do pre-storm activities. So we look to see, we go out and we check inlet basins, and we also have one-way valves that are installed that are on many of our outfalls. And the one-way valve, it stops tide water from backing up into the storm sewer collection system, but they're not perfect and they have to be checked. So we have to go around and check all these one-way valves and make sure there's no debris in them and that they're sealing properly to prevent the tides. So those are two pre-storm activities that we do. If you ever see a drain that has debris on it, you can call our stormwater services, and I'll provide that number to Lori so she can send it out as well. We also keep up our services despite the flooded road. So we still try to maintain garbage pickup as well. And that's what this picture here kind of shows here. Next slide. So I'd like to get into, this is one big project that the city of St. Augustine has underway right now. This is really a tipping point project because this is the first stormwater pumping station that the city will have actually put into operation. It's the Lake Maria Sanchez flood mitigation project. This project was identified after Hurricane Matthew through our local mitigation strategy with St. Johns County. This was identified as the #1 project, and so we qualified for FEMA funding through a hazard mitigation grant funding, which is a 75% funded by FEMA and 25% by local. The total cost of this project to bring it into reality is about $15 million. So it's a very big project for the city of St. Augustine. We're currently at 60% design submittal. And you'll see here, this is a graphic in the bottom right of what the pumping station is going to look like. So this is, you're looking at South Street from Lake Maria Sanchez, and the marsh is on the other side. So the pumping station will be situated in the center of that South Street. And basically it will pump water out of Lake Maria Sanchez for rainfall events. And if you go to the next slide, you'll get to see the next component of the project. So this is actually looking back towards Lake Maria Sanchez. We're actually south over the marsh. So on your left is Washington Street, South Street is at the top, and then on your right would be Marine Street. So this is actually building a flood wall along the marsh line that starts at Duro Street in Lincolnville, wraps around Washington Street, wraps around South Street, and then wraps around some private property owners to the Council on Aging on Marine Street. And this wall will be at elevation 7 feet. So basically what will happen is when we get these tidal flooding events that occur, this wall will prevent that from overtopping and flooding the neighborhoods. And then we'll have a pumping station to pump water out and over the wall to control Maria Sanchez and the stormwater collection system upstream around Bridge Street, Cordova Street. So this project, once it's completed, will stop that flooding that this neighborhood experiences up to elevation 7 feet. And the one reason we picked 7 feet is because that's kind of the natural ridge line that we can tie into at Martin Luther King in the Lincolnville neighborhood, and then also in the Marine Street area. So we don't have to build the wall all the way around. We're using the natural ridges to tie into. That's also the elevation of the existing seawall that starts at the Armory and heads north towards the city marina. Next slide, please. Most people don't think about flooding and sanitary sewer, but this is another big project that the city has that is related to resiliency. These are 13 pumping stations that the city is currently going into construction phase on. This is another project that's about $15 million. And the whole point of these were old pump stations that were adjacent. Most of them were next to our rivers, the San Sebastian and Matanzas River. So they're getting completely rebuilt, and we're building them out of the floodplain. So they'll be more resilient the next time we get a Hurricane Matthew-like storm event that causes flooding. So this is a really important project. And again, it's something that is tied to flooding. It's a resiliency project. And this is actually funded through FEMA as well. And this project is actually, the city's contribution is 12.5%. So this is a big deal and a great project that's going to get done over the next couple of years. Next slide. One thing we have been working on is in South Davis Shores. We did purchase a property for a park that also has a flood mitigation component to it, Coquina Park. We did raise the park. If you ever go out there and look at it, that is actually elevation 7 as well, the top of the park. But the goal there's a much bigger component of this, which is one problem we have with flooding in these areas is that you have to secure every portion of the flood breachways. So you can't just build one thing at one location and think that you're good, because for instance, in South Davis Shores, there's multiple areas where it can just overtop and then flood the whole neighborhood from those spots. So we're looking at, we need to build some kind of berm system along the entire shoreline on the south part of South Davis Shores in order to provide tidal flood protection. And that poses a big challenge because most of those are private properties along that marsh line. And so it's not just public land that the city can go in and program a project. We have to work with the individual property owners to do that. So that's what this study is going to do, is it's going to give a comprehensive look at the neighborhood, what we can do, put costs to them so we can have a more robust conversation with the residents. And if this is a model that works well and we get some productive projects out of it, then it's a model we may look to start to extend to other areas in the city as well. So that just kicked off, and the study will be done in March 2021. And then hopefully from that, we will actually pick projects to move into engineering, design, and construction. One other interesting fact here is that the whole city, about 90+% of our city is in a floodplain. And so that means that you have a 1% chance of seeing these type of floods within any given year. And so that's nothing new. That was established when the National Flood Insurance Program was established, and I believe that was in the late 70s, 80s. And so everybody should be building their homes and new homes at least out and out of the floodplain, which will help make your home more resilient. One problem we have in the city is that we are old, and there was a lot of homes that were built prior to the National Flood Insurance Program being adopted and implemented. And so we have to work with those individual property owners as well, provide education about flood proofing your house. If you know anybody, we do have a program where if you call in, we'll set an appointment up and come out to your house with the building official and our stormwater engineer, and we'll do pointers of what you could do to flood-proof your own home. We'll also talk to you about any FEMA programs, federal programs about lifting your home that you may qualify for as well. Next slide, please. A couple of projects that we did just complete were in Lincolnville. So we've completely redone the drainage for DeHaven Street and also South Street from Martin Luther King to Riberia Street. So these are roadway projects that just got completed. They were funded through CDBG funds, Water Management District funds, and also the Lincolnville CRA funds. And next slide. And we talk a lot about flooding, but the Public Works Department in the city has many other projects, including our utility, our water and sewer projects. But so this is just a snapshot of everything that our Public Works Department has going on, from big capital improvement projects. And this chart brings you from project scoping all the way to post-construction and 100% completion. And so one that we have right now in the Fullerwood neighborhood that's in conceptual analysis is we're working on the Seminole neighborhood drainage area as well. And then you can see we're in, I don't know if you can see all this, but in detailed design, we have the Lake Maria Sanchez project, King Street drainage, downtown improvement district. A couple of other projects that we have, we just recently executed a contract to redo the seawall between where the Santa Maria used to be and the Bridge of Lions. So that's also another FEMA project that we're going to raise that portion of the seawall up to elevation 7 feet as well. And that's another 75% funded by FEMA with a 25% local match. And that's underway as well. Also, the Fort is looking at raising their section of the seawall as well. So those are two areas that if the tide does get high enough, we still get overtopping. So we've recognized that, and we're moving forward to bring those areas up to 7 feet. Next slide. So current dollars that we have invested on these projects is about $22 million. That doesn't actually include the pumping stations that I talked about. You'd add another $15 million onto that. So we've got about $37 million right now of projects underway. And that's just the start. If you can see down here on the picture, that's a picture of one of these one-way valves being installed that are outfalls. This is a big one. This is in the Fullerwood neighborhood at the end of McCarris Street. And so these are the type of valves that we're installing on all of our outfalls to prevent the tide from backing up. But it's just one stopgap measure, because what happens is that if the tide rises and it actually gets above the adjacent land elevation, it just overtops and floods from there. And that's what we saw with this last nor'easter event. And what we predict is going to happen more frequently into the future. Our comp plan, we adopted a 1.5 foot of sea level rise as early as 2040, but we'll also recognize it could be as late as 2100 plus. We just don't know the rate at which that might occur. But these are all the projects that we have underway. We're also looking to develop a targeted road closure and public noticing plan. One thing that we heard from residents is, could you give us more of a localized heads up of when you know that, or when you believe that the roads may flood. Next slide, please. And I know that was a lot to unpack. I'm happy to take any questions. Again, like I said, if you have any specific questions about your business or your home, we're always happy to meet out there and discuss what options you have as well. One thing I do want to recognize is that this is a very difficult problem, especially when you have built out infrastructure in an old city like we have. These projects become very expensive. Just so everybody knows, your strategy is you have three options really when we talk about adaptation, which is retreat, which is abandoning, retreating to higher ground, adapting, which is kind of your flood proofing, getting through the tide cycle, and then protecting, which is the projects that we've outlined are more protectionist in that they're seawalls and they're trying to prevent that tide water from backing up. But those are very expensive projects to undertake. But we do plan to keep moving forward. And one of the challenges we're going to have is working with private property owners. And we're going to need buy-in from residents and business and the business community alike to move forward into the future.
Thank you so much, Reuben. We do have a few questions. The first one is, let's see here. It says, Reuben, will the Lake Maria Sanchez project provide flood protection during a hurricane similar to Matthew or Irma?
It will provide up to 7 feet. So Matthew was about 7 feet. It would breach. Matthew could have overtopped, but I would expect that it would have been more minimal damage. It would have definitely protected for Irma.
Okay. Next question. Questions for Reuben, please. Melissa Whistle, the city's communications manager, has requested through news and notes for resident and business location photos of flooding to support the study. 62 Valencia street floods with storm drains filled to capacity and street flooding. Melissa can be reached at and Whistle at citystateaug.com. Also, can we mandate a no wake zone on the streets during these times? Seems to be a big sport for four-wheelers and high vehicles to zoom through the streets and flood yards and homes. Thanks for the service to review properties for flooding and FEMA ops to raise structures.
We have been contemplating roadway signage for no wake zone because what that one individual comment is that people get into the floodwaters. First of all, you should never drive through. If you can't see the road, you should back up and go the other way because you don't know if there's a water main break. And you're also, in these flood events, you're driving through salt water. You don't want to be doing that. And what we do have problems with is people get in it and then they want to speed up to get out of it and they cause wake. And you're literally talking about some businesses and homeowners are inches away from flooding, and then you throw a half a foot of wake and it actually gets water into their business or home. And so that's what we've been contemplating, what kind of signage we could put out that may help that. That goes more to looking at these road closures to go out and actually start closing roads during these flood events to try to tamp down on that, on people driving through and causing wake there.
Okay, our next one is, how can we help to work with FDOT and the city to get the connector working in the Orange Street area? There is a business that floods at the corner of Riberia and Orange.
So we have reached out to, so one of the interesting things with a lot of our outfalls, stormwater outfalls. So a stormwater outfall is where you have, it's a discharge point into the river. So where you have a drain in the road, it rains, it collects the rainwater through a series of underground pipes and it outfalls to one of our rivers, the Matanzas River, San Sebastian River. What happens is that's a hydraulic connection. So the tides back up through that piping, underground piping network, and then flood the streets through the drains. So what we like to do is to put these one-way valves on that only allow rainwater out, but doesn't allow the tide water to back up. But we also have, a lot of these outfalls are owned and maintained by the Florida Department of Transportation. For instance, we worked on the Bayfront. They actually installed, when they resurfaced San Marco, we asked them to go out and put one-way valves on all of the outfalls along the Bayfront. And the DOT did do that. Now we have to work with them on US 1 because the Flagler Model Land neighborhood, in the neighborhoods that live adjacent to US 1, their outfalls actually outfall across US 1 and into the San Sebastian River. And so we have to work with DOT to put one-way valves on all of those outfalls. So what you can do is, the city's been working with them, but if you get a group of people, I would start to email the maintenance department stating where you live, that you're experiencing flooding and that you're asking the DOT to put one-way check valves on the outfalls. And so that will help the city staff that we're reaching out at a staff level. But if, like any organization, if you start to get residents that have and businesses that have specific problems, that helps move the needle.
Thank you so much. Let's see, then I've got, also, can you supply the contact information for the DOT?
I sure will. Is there a better email to send to?
Actually, you can send it to sjccchehistoric@gmail.com.
Okay.
That would be great. And then, of course, we had Cindy shared with everyone. While we were on the topic of flooding, I would like to let everyone know about a new city-specific text message emergency notification system, St. Aug Alerts. This system will only be used in the event of imminent danger to life or property. To sign up, text St. Aug Alerts to 888-777. Are there any other questions for Reuben at this point? Reuben, thank you so much. That was an excellent presentation. I believe that presentation is going to be out on the chamber as well. You'll be able to locate it there if you would like to review it again. Let's see. So our next meeting will be December 11th, and our keynote speaker will be newly elected Commissioner Barbara Blonder to discuss her new initiatives. I would like to say, if you have any questions that you would like to ask her in advance when we have our programs, we would like those questions so that we could get them ready and address them when we're in the middle of the program. And again, the best email for that would be, let me see, I've got it right here, sjccchehistoric@gmail.com. That way we're answering the things that are important to you. It just makes it more effective, and I think it benefits everybody to just, be engaged, informed, the whole 9 yards. The next thing I would like to talk about is I would like you to visit the chamber website, the event calendar, because there's so many other things out there that could benefit the members or the potential members that we've got. There's other council meetings that's available that I think might come in handy for you. There's different types of, I guess, what are they called? Where you could learn about something. What is that? Special sessions? Nobody's helping me out here. Okay, we're just gonna visit the calendar and you'll be able to see everything that's out there. That'll work. And also, if you're interested in becoming a member, if you're not already a member, I would suggest that you reach out to Sam Ruiz. A couple of different ways you can do that is his phone number, 904-829-5681, extension 56. Or you can email him at samuel.ruiz@sjcchamber.com. And y'all just left me out there to dry. It's okay, I can handle it. My council members extraordinaire. And once again, Franklin, Mr. Reuben Franklin, thank you for your presentation, and everybody, the smiling faces that I can see out there and the ones that choose not to let me see their face. Once again, thank you for attending, and you all have a fabulous day.